How are you?
How are you?
Nice to meet you.
She's a teacher.
Unlikely warrior, Herman Ferguson, The Evolution of a Black Nationalist Revolutionary. The author is Herman Ferguson. The subject is Herman Ferguson. I'm Michael Ferguson. I'm their son. I think most of you know them, know us. It's a good thing, great that you came out. I don't know how many books we're going to sell. I think you all have books. Yeah, get another book, get some more. Give them out as gifts.
It's always a good idea.
Your brothers, sisters, your children. You know, this is history in this book. It's not only their fascinating lives, but sort of the history of his personal evolution, but also a history of Jim Crow South, what that was sort of like, World War II, the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Nationalist Movement, which he, evolved to. But his life very much, he was always very much part of the history of the time. So it's our story, it's his story, but it's our story. Very important. At 92 years young, an icon in the Black Liberation Movement, and his life is chronicled in the book. As the title suggests, my dad evolved from sort of a middle-class, all-American boy growing up in the Jim Crow South into a black nationalist activist. He's been involved in the political prisoner movement, the reparations movement, keeping alive the legacy of Malcolm X, the true legacy of Malcolm X, and a myriad of other social justice movements. You all know this. I got this.
That's okay, we like to hear it.
He's a colleague and confidant of Malcolm X, and he's a member of Malcolm X's organization of Afro-American Unity. He's a witness to the assassination of Malcolm X in the Audubon Ballroom, which is not far from here. Now the Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz Cultural Center. He's a chair and emeritus of the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee, which is an organization that is whose main work is keeping alive the legacy, the true legacy of Malcolm X, and also continuing the work that Malcolm would be doing if he was still here with us, I believe. He's also a co-founder of the National Jericho Movement with the late Sophia Bukhari.
Yes.
Before we begin the program, I want to thank Jennifer Wilson and her staff here at Sisters Uptown Bookstore for hosting.
Jennifer! Sisters Uptown, your number one source.
These independent black bookstores are just jewels and treasures in our communities, but we must support them, we must patronize them.
That's right.
And thank you very much, Jennifer, and all our staff for letting us host the event here. We'd also like to acknowledge Queen Yoni Siddiqui, Chairman of the Committee. Also Manny Gilliard, the co-chair of the committee. They gave a very successful dinner, the 17th dinner tribute to political prisoners. A lot of you were there, so you know how important that was. My parents semi-retired, and that's all it is, semi-retired to North Carolina several years ago. And when they are able to come to New York, we like to try to do these book signings, get them out in the communities, let them meet people and so forth. This is the first one we've done in New York since last May, and we're very happy to have it here in Harlem and in such close proximity to the Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz Cultural Center, which was a big part of this.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, fine. Because the first thing that I'm going to do, so we talk about Sisters Uptown Bookstore, we say thank you, right? And I was telling Sister, and Manny will bear this out, that the way I learned about Sisters Uptown Bookstore was when the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee hosted their first awards dinner for young people, awards tribute for young people at the Malcolm X Betty Shabazz Memorial Center. And the Malcolm X Commemoration Committee never has any money. We do everything free of charge, and we make everybody donate. And one of the places that donated books as awards for our young people who wrote essays about Malcolm was Sisters. And so and I'm really grateful to be here, but this is my introduction to Sisters Bookstore. And I want you to know that. As Michael has said, many of you were with us on Saturday at the dinner. And so I'm going to take a little time for those of you who weren't to tell you who the people are, because every one of these people are mentioned in this book. Manny and DeQuee are mentioned. Also gave me an opportunity to talk about Abubadika Sonny Carson, whom I adore. He died much too young, much too young. In fact, when Sonny died, I felt betrayed. Because, Sonny, you're supposed to be the one I'm going to go to if I don't have an answer. I can go to Sonny. In fact, I felt that when I had to arrange a funeral for Herman, it would be Sonny that I'd go to. Instead, we went to him. And he was a really strong brother and a really good brother. So I got an opportunity to talk about him. That's what the notes did for me. But the appendix, and there are several of them, also provide what I want to flesh out. One is the resume of Herman, which tells you what this unlikely warrior had, what the beast ripped out of our communities and forced out of this country. But he put those skills and all that education and that knowledge to work in Guyana. But there is also something in this appendix, which is the written brief by the judge, Bruce Wright. Part of the book will tell you that Herman, when he came back from Guyana, was remanded immediately into prison. And when time came for him to come up for parole, the parole board did what parole boards always do, which was turn him down. Turn him down. He was in his 70s then, I think. And they had no reason other than he was not. And I put this brief that Judge Wright wrote, and he wrote it really blasting the parole board. And it's something that needs to be read by everybody that is working in the political prisoner movement, so that they can use that when they are also pushing these parole boards and the like. One of the first sentences he says is that this parole board seemed to have stood by an unproud tradition of having made up your minds before you walked in the room. The judge says this in an official document that is in the courts. And then he goes on to tear apart their, whatever it is they had to say as to why this young man should not be paroled. He also says that if any black man or woman is not paranoid, that person is sick. That's what the judge says in an official thing that is in the court, that is in the official papers in the courts. And but he says that this man, Herman Ferguson, was not paranoid because these things were really happening to him, that the government was really putting down all these things on him. Bought a home in Queens, and he's now gone into the education system, and he has become an assistant principal. And New Yorkers know what that means, that he's second in command in the school, and he's on his way to becoming a principal. He has a little study group, but they're not working on ways to upturn the government. They're working on ways to advance from, and they're all black men, to advance from being teachers to assistant principal and to go move further on. Herman is the most unlikely warrior, that's how this name came about, that you can imagine. And he's just doing this. Yes, he sees what's happening. Yes, you couldn't live in that time and not be moved by what was happening. You had the kids being bombed in Birmingham. You had Medgar Evers being shot down in his driveway. Then you had the whole sitting people, the ones that began to sit in the Freedom Riders, being beat up and blown up and the like. You had all of that. You had to see this, and he did observe this, and he did comment and was critical about it, but he wasn't doing anything about it. He wasn't moving about it. He was just being charged with conspiracy to commit anarchy. Herman Ferguson and Arthur Harris were given additional charges of conspiracy to commit murder. So Herman, having gone out and tried to implement and carry out some of what he perceived as the teaching by Malcolm, was stopped now, they thought. And he was arrested, but he was out on bail. And when he came out on bail, he just kept on talking. He couldn't be a part of the Jamaica Rifle and Pistol Club. He couldn't do that anymore. But he did do martial arts classes. He did do that. And so he just kept on working until finally, after all the many appeals and the like, this was no longer possible. But before he left the country, he had become very involved with Imari Obadeli and the Republic of New Africa. And the Republic of New Africa, I always say, is a defining moment of Herman's life. And one of the things that he did while he was out on bail was to run for Senate, of the United States Senate. And that was just so that he had a platform.
In the United States, I better put my glasses on. I am 92, and my eyes are 93. A new nation exists in the United States. It began forming during the early days of slavery. It was fully evolved by the time of the Civil War in 1861, 200 years later. A nation is a group of people having a common language, a common culture, sharing common experiences. Black people in America are an African people with a common culture, a common language, and they have shared and are sharing common experiences that bind them together and set them apart from those people so happily calling themselves Americans. Black people are Africans living in America. We have a common culture, common perspective and values, a group identity, and a common gene pool, derived from our distinct group history. We are new Africans because we are an African people, evolved from not one but several African nations, and have some Indian, Native, Indigenous, and European genes melded during the course of 200 years of slavery.
From Harlem, this is Lenny B for the LMS Extra Show.